on this platform, we don't just talk about problems. Kent Hay. He is the Director of Human Services for the city of Auburn, an
Right.
author of a book that is shaking up city halls across the state. This brother has built city-led models that other cities are copying right now. His team housed more than 200 people.
New Year's Eve, someone shot me. I thought to myself, I don't want to help people anymore, right? Once I recovered, something was like, I could do better, right? I could do more.
What's up, everybody? This is the Giovanne Show. I'm Giovanne Schachere. And on this platform, we don't just talk about problems. We bring you stories that demand attention, stories that change how we see leadership. And today, we're starting with the legend, Kent Hay. He is the Director of Human Services for the city of Auburn. He's the founder of Elite Outreach, and he's an author. I want to say that again, an
Right.
author of a book that is shaking up city halls across the state. It's called Managing Homelessness, a ground level approach to lasting solutions. This brother has built city-led models that other cities are copying right now. In 2024 alone, his team housed more than 200 people while restoring public spaces and proving that compassion and accountability are not enemies, they're partners. Kent, it's an honor to have you on the first episode of the Giovanne Show. I want to thank you so much for being here, Kent. How
Yeah,
you?
man. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Sorry to cut you off, but a little excited now when you're talking about all the things, and I'm definitely humbled by that. And so I appreciate the invite, man, and being on the first one.
Yes, yes. I appreciate you being here. Kent, let's start right here. You've been in probation, you've
Mhm.
been in behavioral health,
Mm.
and now
Yeah.
you're rewriting how cities handle homelessness. What was the moment when you said, the way we're doing this is broken, and I'm going to try to change it?
I probably would say it started with probation and kind of being there for as many years as I was. I think that was probably, I'll tell you, it was my longest job. I was there the second time around at Seattle Municipal Court for about 9 years. I'll tell you what the turning point was, man. I was in probation. I went back home to California, where I'm from. New Year's Eve, someone shot me, and so I got shot in the face.
Wow.
And I was down there for a little bit recovering, and ended up coming back home. And I would tell you, man, like my first thought was like the dude that shot me. I thought to myself, like, I would have. That's what I do, is help people, and so it really kind of stopped, and it made me upset to a point where I thought to myself, I don't want to help people anymore, right? I was
Yeah.
at that point where I was like, what's the purpose, right? I don't want to help nobody anymore. So but when I got back to Seattle Municipal Court, man, I had once I recovered, something was like, I could do better, right? I could do more. And I started building a resource center inside the Seattle Municipal Court as part of the community court, and started kind of taking that over and reimagining what probation looked like. And, what does it really look like to end recidivism, to reduce it a
Yeah.
lot, and getting probation officers to do more than just the status quo of writing reports, sending people back, recommending jail, things like
That's
that,
right.
where we could have been doing a lot more to help people. And so I started building that resource center, started, doing big things there. And I think what happened is they just weren't ready for that. You know what I'm saying? And so I got to a place where I outgrew that, and I just couldn't see probation making that change that I needed to see. And so what happened then is I saw a job posting at a city of Redmond for a temporary position, which was a 6-month position. Now, mind you, I already was 9 years invested in the city, and just at
Yeah.
that time, and I went to a 6-month temporary position. I felt like this
You
was
needed that
something new.
change.
I did,
Yeah.
and I thought I could do something bigger, and so I took it on, not knowing really what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? But I came with a lot of experience from probation and prison and CPS and all
Sure.
the things. And then going through my own experience, with being shot. And I met a police officer there, and we started talking. He was on the other side. He was conservative. He had all these ideas, and I thought it was a little too much.
Hmm.
It was too far on that side. And I was always trying to find this balance. The model came from that of where is that middle ground where, there is that compassion part where it's always been there. And I saw a lot of that happening, but a compassion of too much compassion to a place where it's hurting people. And then I saw the other side where it's too much of I just don't want to see it anymore, and I don't want to see these people and everybody, arresting people and things like that, where it's too far to the other side. So this middle that I was able to get into, that's where found this space of compassion, accountability. And then I added the community part because the community was a big part of how we address homelessness in cities.
That's right. That's right. It takes a village. It
Yeah.
takes a
Yeah.
village. And when you walked into those early outreach days, what did you see that nobody else was really addressing?
I saw a lot of community, or especially in Redmond, I saw a lot of giving, a lot of feeds, and a lot of people coming to eat and sit down, but there was nobody going, what are we doing next, right?
Right.
What are we really trying to accomplish here, rather than just what do you need right now? There
Yes.
was no long-term conversations, right? And so I feel like people need to start at the end and say, what are we trying to accomplish here? And then work their way backwards to put that in place and then hold the person accountable along the way. So I saw a lot of
Right. Like
people
the treatment
complaining,
plan.
correct. But I
Hmm.
saw a lot of people complaining about homelessness, but at the same time contributing to making people accept that place, right? And be
That's
comfortable
right.
in that. And so it didn't make sense to me. It's like you can't complain for the person who's panhandling on the corner, and then you're giving to the person who's panhandling on the corner.
That's right. Too much compassion.
Correct.
Too much compassion can hurt.
Correct.
How did you, with your background in law enforcement and mental health, like, how do you think that gives you a lens that other leaders
Mm.
don't have?
I think what happens is I see it at, working those jobs of when I was working for Redmond and then working for Auburn is, and then also taking over human services now, right? And being in that space is you see a lot of people who've never really been on the ground. And when I talk about really been on the ground, you can call it outreach all you want to, but if you're standing on the corner, and you're just going to tabling at events, or you're sitting in the library and you're waiting for people to come around, I don't consider that really outreach, because you really don't know what's going on in your city, right? You're just seeing those people. You ain't
That's
really
right.
in the encampments. You ain't really seeing what's going on out there. And I would tell people all the time, man, it's not, there's not a lot of people just surviving out there. I think there's that thing that people are just trying to survive. I worked at Monroe Prison for some years,
Yeah.
and it's prison outside, man. It really is that behavior is it just has no guards, right?
That's
So there's a
right.
lot that happens out in the bushes that people don't really know about. There's a lot of thefts and assaults and all the things that happen out there, and it's a lot of anarchy. And so it's hard really if you don't know what's going on in your city, how then do you help the people when you don't even know what's happening?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think
Of
there's
course.
this division of, like, we see homelessness and we talk about it, and someone's always giving numbers, and they have this philosophy that we've been doing this thing for so long of just giving, 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 and never asking for nothing in return. And so when you only see what people are giving you, but you don't have people really out there doing that work, you stay the status quo, which is just giving money out and hoping. I tell the mayor all this time in Auburn is, for me, I don't believe in hope. The word hope, man. I feel like hope is, my definition of hope is wishing without a plan, right?
Yeah, that
And
makes
so
a
I
lot
have
of
a I have
sense.
a plan. I have a
Yes,
plan. So
that's right. Then you don't have to hope.
correct.
That might not
You hear
ever
that all
come.
the time. I hope I can pay my bills. I hope I can do
Yes.
this. I hope I can do that. But it's
Yes.
like, nah, you got to do that. It's not
That's right.
hoping.
That's right. That's right. So you really combine compassion and accountability. And a lot of people think that that can be opposite. And through your
Mm,
story just now, you're really weaving that together for us. You've proven that they have to work together. They have to, it's not
correct.
optional, right?
It's
So
not an
tell
option.
us, Kent, what does compassion with accountability
Mm,
look like when you're face to face with someone in the woods or in an
yeah.
encampment or somebody who's just flat out refusing services?
I tell people the story of when I started, especially, and I'll tell you, it's two different. Homelessness looks different in every city, and I'll be honest. Like you go to the east side of Washington, your Redmonds and your Bellevue and all that. You have a different folks are different over there who are experiencing homelessness. You come to South King County, where again it's less money and less services, and it's just a lot more things going on out here. It looks different. You're dealing with a different group of people. And so, when I got to Auburn, the first thing I did was find where the worst place was in Auburn, which was at one of our parks. And, I just went in there and said, I took my backpack and my Wi-Fi hotspot and my computer, and I walked in there, and the first thing people would say is, "What do you have to give me?" Right? What do you bring? And I
Yeah,
said, I don't bring anything. I bring help. Right? I don't have snack
right.
packs, and you're very capable of getting that stuff. Right? My job is to come out here and help. And a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't want that, right? They just wanted stuff. I think the compassion, where they meet is I want to see people, I want to talk to people and not really talk to people, because I think when you come out there and just bring people stuff, your relationship is now that. If that's your first
That's right.
contact with somebody's bringing them something, that's your relationship from now on, is what did you
Mhm.
bring me, right? And now
Yeah,
you can't have a conversation if I didn't bring you something. So my
that's right.
first conversation is, how do we get out of this situation? And some people are like, I'm good, right? Like, I don't want to talk to you. And that's where the place where you go, I can't accept that, right? You're in a space where people want to enjoy and you don't even want to move towards anything else. We have rules here, right? And what
Mhm.
you're telling me is not acceptable. So we got to come to this place where we have to have an understanding. And I tell people all the time, this is like, you could either work with me voluntarily or you can work with me involuntarily. At some point, we're gonna have a conversation again, right? Because I'm gonna keep coming out here. And at some point, law enforcement, it just becomes a law enforcement issue now, and it doesn't become a me asking you if I can help you. It's now more you just don't want to help, but you can't do this any longer. We don't
Right,
accept that here.
right. Exactly. And wow, that's really deep. Can you give us two stories like where you combine those two themes?
Yeah. I'll tell you one I was thinking about, and it's always a story, man, that I think about because um I I was working in Redmond at the time, and there was a guy who was living in a car in the safe parking program there. When I first met him, he didn't really have he was just saying stuff, right? It was just like he wanted to play video games. Him and his friend wanted to get an apartment. Like it wasn't really it was like, what are we trying to get to? And it was like, I just want to play video games and be in an apartment. And it was like, well, I hear you, but you don't have no money, right? So
Yes.
how do we get here? And so then that conversation stopped because I think it was like, what can you give me, and not how can you help me get there? And then after some time, we ended up talking again. I already made an assumption, or I've been doing this work for a while, especially in mental health, and I had an idea what was going on. And we started talking some more, and I really thought he was autistic, right? He was on the
Mhm.
spectrum. And so we had to have this conversation about what that looks like, what can we do? What are the barriers that are stopping you and all these things? And we got to a place where we finally did a DSHS assessment. We got him in, got him eval, he got on SSI. And the crazy part about that whole situation, man, was he was so excited to get a diagnosis of autism because for his whole life, his parents just thought he was
Yeah,
not working hard enough. He wasn't
yeah,
trying, and he ended up in homelessness because people just assumed that he was not wanting to, right? And not putting the things in place for him to be successful. And so, he's doing great now. He still reaches out to me, still contacts me to this day, and he's doing amazing, man. He's in housing, he's happy, he works part-time, and he calls me just to check in and tell me that, he always calls to thank me. And
hmm,
which is, I tell people all the time, it's not mine, it's yours. I don't take anything from people, right? Your success is yours. Your failures are yours. My job is to put things in place for you to be successful, to take away all the barriers for you to be successful. So I appreciate it. I'm just happy he was able to get to where he needed to be.
ability. Yeah.
Correct, correct. Now, the accountability part, I thought about a story. There was a guy, man, out here who, there's so many of them. I'll tell you one that I couldn't believe it myself. I chased this dude around Auburn for for years. 5 years I've been in Auburn. And every time I come across him, I bring a nurse out to see him, I bring a doctor out to see him. There's one time when I went to his encampment and he was shooting up in his neck, while he was holding the mirror. I mean,
Wow.
he was that deep into his
Yeah.
addiction. And I just thought, at some point, like I was just gonna find him, dead. He just wasn't gonna make it through it. And there was no way, there's nothing I could do to help him, right? It was just constantly going back, offering, offering, offering. He knew who I was, always trying to get away from me, but he ended up getting locked up. And he ended up reaching out, man. He reached out. And this is what happens a lot is people get locked up sometimes because they can't do it on their own. They need that time out. And they call us. And so he called. I created a clean and sober housing program in the city of Auburn. So if people give me 30 days of inpatient, we give them a year of housing, right? In clean and
Wow.
sober housing. So he called me and we made that happen, right? And the man got his whole. It was at the start when we first started doing this. It was 3 years of housing that we offered. Cut it down to a year just to make more, give people more opportunity. But in that 2 years that he took, he was able to get clean and sober. He got a job. He got married. He has his
Wow.
kids back.
All right.
He
Clap
has
it
his
up.
parents back, right?
That's
Has his
amazing.
parents back. Man, the
That's
dude is doing,
amazing.
man, killing it. And so
Amazing.
I look at that, man, and I applaud him, man. But it was always, again, it's my job is to put things in place to take away all the barriers for you to be successful. You just have to want it. But there's some people who their addiction is so strong, man, that they need that time out. And so that's where, to me, that accountability part comes in, where it's like, this is not a me issue anymore because there's nothing I can do. The amount of help that I'm offering you, you're so in your addiction that we can't even have a real conversation. You have to have a timeout, man, so we can have a clear-minded conversation about what your life looks like once you leave this jail.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's real out here. It's real out
Man,
here. Once you come
super.
back out, you can
Exactly.
sometimes fall back
Yeah,
into that addiction, and
correct.
it's just
Correct.
the circle of homelessness over and over
Yeah.
and over again.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really like leads me back into wanting to get more from you around this topic because there are some cities that lean
Mm,
very, very, very heavy on just the compassion part. You spoke a little bit about
correct.
that earlier, but what is the outcome of that? Like when a city leans too heavy on just compassion, what
Yeah.
happens?
I think you see a lot of people dying. I think that's what happens, right? I
Yeah,
think I tell people, and I know people sometimes laugh, but I tell you, you're killing people with compassion. Literally, you're killing people with
yeah,
compassion, right? You're hugging people to death. When I came to Auburn, man, it was in Redmond, like I said, it was different. I didn't have to deal with people, people had a hard time out there. I was dealing with a lot of folks, but man, when I came out here, I was dealing with bodies now, right? I was
yeah,
finding bodies. I was dealing
yeah.
with bodies. I'm still dealing with bodies and overdoses and all the
Wow.
things, but I deal with it less now because of the accountability part that we put into Auburn. But in other cities, I know that you're still seeing a lot of those overdoses, and a lot of people think Narcan is the answer. Where I feel like there's Narcan, and there's more
Other
than just
options.
that, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so I think with too much compassion, and that's what I see with a lot of citizens, right? Is like they want to help and they think help is giving and they contribute to the problem, right? Because again,
Wow.
if I go out into the field and I offer help, this is why I used to tell people, man, if I go to someone who's panhandling
Mhm.
and I offer them assistance. And it's not right now because that housing is difficult. There's
Yes, it
work that
takes
has to
it
be
takes some
done.
time.
We gotta
Yeah,
work on these things, right? And so
right.
if I tell you I got a plan, I can help you get off the street and get you into this place. And if someone comes with $20, my conversation with this person is over,
Yeah.
right? Because there's
Yeah.
nothing that I could give this person that's quicker than this
Immediate.
$20, right?
Yes.
Homeless is
Yes.
immediacy, right? Homelessness is what can I get right now? And
Yes.
so when you're contributing to that, you make it harder for people to come out there and do the work because you're intervening. You're stopping the progress because you feel bad that you want to give this person money, but what you're really doing is telling that person not to use the services that are available.
Yeah, because you can panhandle or you can, find the quick way. And the
Correct.
quick way
Correct.
goes into the next day and then
There
the
you
next
go.
day and
There
the
you
next
go.
day and the next day.
Exactly. And
And the
then you
next
get
thing
the
you
phone
know.
call. Why is this person still over here panhandling? It's because you created a job for them, right?
Exactly, exactly. So, what would you say then on the opposite end, right? What would you say to a city that's leaning too heavy on
Mm.
enforcement? What happens then?
I think the problem with enforcement, man, when you haven't put the things in place, right? Because don't get me wrong, when the ordinance, came down about having to offer people services like 48-hour notices, and then, they moved over here and then you got to do it again and do it again. That part, that was really hard, because even when you got to that place, people, let me say it like this: when you just arrest people, at some point they just get back out and they come back and keep doing the same thing, right? And you
Mm,
just run into the same situations, and nobody really gets to help. Because if I'm arresting somebody, again, when I tell you about the clean and sober housing program, the only reason why that came about was because I'm like, you could build all the treatment centers you want, you could put all the people in jail that you want to, but if they don't have a place to exit to when they're done, they're coming right back to the street, and then you're
that's
going to be
right.
arresting them again, right? And
That's right.
so, what's the point of that? Amount of
Right.
money you're spending on bookings and holding people in jail, and then, taking up space in there, and then they come out like you're not solving any problems, right? And so, my thing was like, if we're going to arrest, which I'm okay with, right? And I know people have a hard time with that. Trust me, I hear it all the time. People get mad at me. They're
Yes,
like, they think
definitely.
there's no place for jail. And I say I
Yes.
disagree with that, because there are some people who aren't able to make that decision to move forward, and they need someone to intervene. So I believe in jail, but I don't believe in jail and then not offering anything on the back end of that, right? Even if that
Yeah.
person said no, at least you offered.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
I think, the arrest part on that, because we got a community court as well. And I don't know, a lot of people
Yes.
know about community court. Some people don't know
It's
about a
great.
community court. It's a
It's great.
diversion program, right? So it
Yes.
allows people to, when you get arrested, you're able to go to a court that doesn't look like a regular court, doesn't treat you like a regular court. And
Yes.
at the end of your jurisdiction, which is shorter, your case is dismissed and it's not on your record. So you're not piling up a bunch of charges, on the
Yeah.
back end. So that makes it harder for you. So again, if you're not putting in the work, I feel like you can't just go straight to arrest if you're not willing to build something first to allow people to make that decision, right? Because
Exactly.
if you make the decision that you don't want to, that's fine. And I tell people all the time, you don't got to take what I'm offering, but you won't do what you're doing here,
Yeah.
right?
You cannot continue.
You can't continue that. I've offered you everything, right? I
Yeah.
offered you the opportunity to change your life, and you don't want that, and that's fine. And you might not want it now, and it's available later on. But for now, if you don't want that, I look at it as a lot of other cities that allow you to do that, but you can't do that here.
Right. And there's different stages of change. So like you said,
Correct.
I really appreciate that part where you mentioned that, it's still available, later on if that's
Yeah.
something that you
Yeah.
want,
Yep.
because
Yeah.
yeah, people are at different stages. And also people sleep on community courts, drug court,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
these courts are amazing. What they do is transform lives. Like bottom
Correct.
line, there's no better way to help somebody get on the right path quicker.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
treating someone like a child and
Hmm.
punishing them, that's what society does. And
Yeah.
there is a place for that. That's why it's been with a part of our society for a long time,
Correct.
but there needs to be caveats around it, but it works. It works for a lot of people. For some,
Yep.
it's something that people just get used to,
Correct.
unfortunately, and they're
Correct.
in and out and don't mind.
Yep. Yep.
But let's lead into results and outcomes. You don't just talk values. You deliver results. That's what we're talking about. That's what we've been talking about. And last year, I'm gonna say it again. You housed 205 people. Is that the right number? Or is it more than that?
It's more than that.
It's way more than that,
We don't.
right?
Yeah, it's more than that. It's hard. When you're doing the work, man, and you're seeing so many people, and you're trying to collect data. It's really hard, man, to make sure you get the right numbers. And there's people you've helped that you might didn't put on the list, or they got housing and you just never heard from them. Because I've housed people over the phone I've never met before.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I don't have to be outside to help you. Like, I've
Yeah.
taken phone calls and made it happen and
Wow.
connected the person without even meeting them in person, right?
That's right.
And not even really get a name. Just they called. I know what to do. Why would I make them do all this? Come see me in person when I could do some of these things over the phone. The number's bigger than that. I'll take. saying the 205.
Yeah. We don't want to downplay it at all.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
are these are lives, and you know,
yeah, yeah.
there's many lives that you're coming into contact with, and
Correct,
you
correct.
know, you put in a face, you all those faces to those numbers, really, honestly,
Yeah, yeah,
in your head. But yeah, these are still anything I would say over 200 is an astronomical number in social services, honestly. I mean,
yeah,
what do you think are like your, I think I know what you might say anyway, you know, that the outreach and the way that you hold people accountable, and you also
yeah.
use that compassion. But
Correct.
what do you think gets you to that level, like of 200 plus people? How do you do that? How do you
Mhm.
get that done?
Well, first, let me say, man, I got a great team, and that's where it starts, right? You gotta have the people, man, and you
Mm.
gotta have the right people. Like it
Yes,
takes a toll on us, man. And my thing when I'm working with my team is like I want them to take as much time as they need to cope, and it's hard. You're taking on people's problems, and one of the things I tell them too is, and I know people have a hard time when they hear this. I said, we're not here to save people, man. We're here to help people. That's two different things. Saving people, you're taking on all of their stuff
right.
and trying to take on 200, 300 people's problems, and not
Never
being
gonna
able
work.
to separate that, man, you'll burn out really fast.
Yeah,
Right.
never
And so
gonna
you
work.
come across some hard cases where it touches you personally. And I've been doing this long enough where I can separate that, because I've had share burnouts, with all the jobs that I've had. And so I've learned to be able to deal with that. It is the people, first of all, that you hire and make sure that they're okay during their doing their things. But how do we house them, man? We by any means necessary, honestly. And so, whatever it takes, we're talking about
Whatever
getting
it
people on
takes.
social security. We're talking about
Mhm.
doing we partner with DSHS, HMIS, that whole system there through King
Yes,
County,
coordinated
nominating people
entry.
for housing. Yep.
Yep.
We do our own CEAs, right? We don't have an access point we send people to. When I created this position and then the positions that I've hired for, I wanted to make sure every single one of us was our own agency. You see what I'm saying? There's nothing that
Yeah.
we can't do. We do the
Okay.
housing, we do the transportations, we do the outreach, we do all the things, and we do it by ourselves. And then we help each other as needed. So we don't rely on other agencies necessarily to help us unless we need that help, right? We do all the work until we need to bring somebody in to do the things that we can't do, but we try to mimic everything that every agency does because it's easier for a person when they're working with you to work with one person than 15 people and 15 phone calls and everybody's doing something different. So we try to manage that ourselves until we need somebody to come in for a piece that we don't have. And so, we talk to people about in the shelter and sometimes they don't like it, but it's like if you got an income and you got an income and y'all been sharing this space in here for this long, why can't both of y'all live
Yes,
together? You see what I'm saying?
exactly. Exactly.
And so we have those conversations, right? You got 950, you got 950, I can make that work,
Yeah.
right? And then you get into a place and then you move on. And then these are all stepping stones. We have to have that conversation. These are stepping stones, man. I'm not giving you what you want necessarily all the time. I don't have what you want. I have what's available. You see what I'm saying? So there does come that accountability part too, where you tell people in our shelter, I'm nominating you for housing, man. And if you don't take it,
Wow. I
at some
like
point
that.
you gotta go. We
Yeah.
got to make space for somebody else, right? This is a shelter.
Yeah.
This is not
I
your
like
forever
that.
home,
I
right?
nominate. I like that. That
Right?
is smooth. That is
Yeah.
smooth. I'm gonna have to use that. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
stealing that from Kent Hay. Okay. Like
Yeah.
straight up. That is
Yeah.
dope. Yes, like I'm nominating you. That gives them the power to make
Correct.
that choice. And if
Exactly.
you're not gonna make the choice, I cannot make the choice for you. You
Yeah.
retain that
Eh,
option.
Yep. Right. And so
Exactly.
that's what we do is we provide opportunity, right?
Hmm.
That's all we can do is provide opportunity. But if you don't want it, this is what's available. I can't give you what you want. And
Right.
so and that's what I think in homelessness is missing a lot too, is we keep bypassing that place where, we all had to do things we didn't want to do to get to where we want to be at. And for some reason, we're taking that away from these folks who are out here is we're saying, let's skip all the way to what you want. And then when they get there, they're not capable of handling that. And then they
Yeah.
end up back in homelessness.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's talk about your book,
Yeah.
Managing
Yeah.
Homelessness. It's a playbook for leaders. I'm so happy for you. Like I'm
Thank you.
standing really
Yeah.
standing behind you on, being an author and putting this into a book. It's just like so many people need to pick this up And so I want to give you a scenario around it because I need
All right.
people to know like what they're picking up. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
If a mayor picked up the phone and
Mm.
said, Kent, we need help, mayor
Yeah.
of maybe one of those cities, maybe Olympia,
Okay.
they need help. So
Okay.
where do we start? And what are the three steps that you tell them to take immediately?
I think first, man, is really having a serious conversation. When I was working for Redmond and I took that 6-month position, they had already, that was the police department and the planning department working together to make that happen, right?
Mm.
And so police were already on board. You already had the planning department on board. You had the mayor on board. So everybody was on board, right? It still was hard to get to where we needed to be at, but the foundation kind of was already laid. Even though they didn't know what they wanted, they were saying this is what direction we're going into. When I came to Auburn, it was more of nobody kind of knew I was coming. And then I was there. And then I had to do a lot of work to try to change people's minds and let them know that I'm here to help, not to just come in and impede and do all these things to you. I'm trying to help us do this for the city, right? So it took a lot more work.
Wow.
So I would say if a city wanted to do something like this, I think you got to get the buy-in first. I think it starts with the mayor, right? And giving direction on what they want their city to look like and what this looks like and what they want departments to do, right? And having that conversation about what this looks like for the departments and what they want to see from the department. So I think there has to be that foundation that's laid first of this is the direction that we want to go. This is what we want to do. This is why we're doing this, right? So everybody's on the same page. Then you got to hire the right people, right? That's the huge part is you can't just put anybody in there and not know what you want them to do.
That's right.
Because they'll do
That's right.
whatever, right? If you don't know
That's
what
right.
you're doing, you're just gonna do whatever you're gonna do.
Make
And
it
then I
through the
think
day.
correct, correct. And then I think the third part, and I know a lot of people aren't gonna like this one, man. I know they aren't. And I get like I've gotten this flack, man, for years because
Yeah.
I hear it.
Yeah.
But you got to look at the funding that you're putting into this. Are you putting it in the right places, or are you just peanut butter spreading all your human services money to just organizations who ain't doing the work just to keep them in business, right? And then you don't get any buy-in because you got to remember, and I've said this a lot, is it's not shaming anybody. I did nonprofit work, right? But nonprofits are beholden to the people they're working with and their funders. They're
Hmm.
not responsible to the whole city, right? So when they're doing the work, they're not thinking about the city. They're thinking about, I got to meet these numbers to get this money, and I got to check these boxes, right? Where working as a city employee, you're responsible to the whole city. I'm responsible to the mayor, the businesses, the citizens, right? The
That's
parks
right.
department, all
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And so my thing is like you can do something different with some of that funding instead of peanut butter spreading all this money and then expecting all these nonprofits to really do this work when they're not invested in it. Like they have their own mission statements. You got 50 agencies with 50 different mission statements, but there ain't no direction of what the
Yeah.
city wants the city to look like.
Yeah. Exactly. And what do you think are so then would you say then that's like one of the biggest traps then for a city? Like they don't really have like they everything's all peanut butter spread and like would you say that that's the biggest trap? Is that like or is there more to it? Like
I think there's a couple of things, man. I think if we're talking about that, I will tell you this. I think human services is not held accountable as much as all the other departments.
wow.
I'll tell you, if public works and someone had a water issue and you wasn't fixing that water issue, you're gonna be fired. You know what I'm saying? Like you're
That's
accountable.
deep.
Like you're not holding
That
on
is
to your
deep.
department. You're not doing your job. And
Yeah.
if parks is falling apart and people are acting up in parks, people are gonna be looking at you to
Yeah.
go, why is your parks falling apart, right? But
Yeah.
human services, don't nobody ever say, why is there more homelessness in this city? We're giving much more money every year and then it's getting worse. There's no accountability there, right? Because we start throwing out words that it's too complicated and people are competent. Nah, man, like you're accountable. This is your department. Why don't you know who's out here? Why don't you know if you haven't been in the field to even know who you serving, but you paying all these nonprofits to do something,
Something. Yeah. And we don't
right?
know exactly
And we
what
don't
that
know
something
exactly what
is.
it is. Exactly.
Wow.
So I think, if you got $1 million and you're spending, $1 million on outreach, you know what outreach means.
Yeah.
and what that looks like, right? But you
Yeah.
still got a whole bunch of people on the ground, and you're just like, well, we need more money. Because usually that's the answer, right? Well, we just don't have enough money. We need more money. And so we just keep throwing more money into it, and it keeps getting worse. But nobody's really asking the real question is like, do you even know who you helping? And do you know why they're not taking the help?
Yes, and so basically, really, they need to hire you. That's really what it is.
I don't know, man. I
You
really
save a
want to
lot of
help.
money,
I,
you
I do
know?
this work. They would save a lot of they would save a lot. I'll tell you this. Let me tell you this. And I'll just go back to Auburn because I do want to keep it separate. I got the business, but Auburn is where I'm working right now. But even in human services, when I took that position over, we had a budget of $680,000 for human service contracts, right? We ended up cutting that in half, and we only funded half the organizations that we were funding before. We had like 40 something agencies, and we cut that into 22. And we got a lot of angry people. And you got to ask yourself, why are you mad, right? This is city money. The
Yeah,
city is saying, and city council is saying, we want people to be held more accountable. We want to see results. My job is not to keep you in business, right? My job is not to make sure your business stays in business if you're not doing your job, right?
right.
So when I have these conversations with people as a human services and an outreach person really going out here, my real conversations are, I've been in the field for 5 years here. I've never seen you out here. I've never seen you in our shelter. I've never seen you at the library. Like, I've never
Yeah.
seen you. Where are you getting these numbers from?
Yes.
You feel me? And if you
Yeah.
can't answer this question, what are we paying you for?
Right. Exactly. You need
Uh,
to be well versed in
Correct.
everything
Correct.
to be able to help
I want
somebody.
to see you out there, right?
Yeah.
I don't want just numbers because I don't know. I'm out here and I'm telling you, I don't know how you got these numbers. Because
Right.
where they at? Where are these people at that you saying that you help? Because I've never heard your name, right? Never heard your agency. I heard no, when I ask people who they working with, I've never heard that agency, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're giving you $100,000 over 2 years, right? 200 grand. Like, why?
That's really holding them accountable. I love it.
Right?
I
Right?
love it. I love it.
But they get upset. But I don't know, I don't know the answer to
They
that.
might have to, but hey, you holding them accountable. I want you
Correct.
to be real here too. From your book, which chapter of your book do you
Mm,
think, in your opinion,
yeah.
should every mayor in America read and why?
It'll get me in trouble, but I was looking at it in chapter 8, man, where it's reclaiming public responsibility beyond the nonprofit industrial complex.
All
And
right.
so I'm really big on that, man. I really am. I really believe this when I say this, man, is I don't think my position should never exist. You know what I'm saying? Like there should not be my position out here because there should be nobody out here. This shouldn't even exist. That's how I feel about it. So when I see some of these commercials, or I see like people talking about they've been in business for 100 years or 30 years, like I know homelessness is never going to be. We manage homelessness, right? I never say ending homelessness. I think we should stop saying that.
Yeah,
We can't even manage it well, but we're talking about ending homelessness, right? We've been saying ending homelessness for years and we ain't even managing it well. So I didn't know how you
that's right.
skip to skip to
That's
that.
right.
But
Yeah.
my thing is like when we start applauding that you're helping more people than you did the year before, that's a failure. You
Yeah.
feel me?
Yeah.
If you say you served 100 more people than you did last year, we're failing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you've been in the business for 100 years, our job is supposed to be going out of business. I want to hear people say they help less people. That means we're doing a good job. That means we're doing what people asked us to do in this field. We saw less people. We helped less people because that's your numbers should be get smaller if things are going right, not getting higher, right? So I get it why you post that message, but for me, when I look at it, I feel like we're failing. If I said, we house right now in 2025, I think it's around, I don't know, 170 or something like that. And we're not going to be the 100, 200 something next year. And it shouldn't be that because
Yeah.
we've been doing the job. We should be housing less this year.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you're making sure that you're diverting people appropriately, making sure that you have everything in place so that the system works, right? The
Correct,
system works.
correct.
You're basically working yourself out of a job.
And
Like
that's
that,
where
which
I
is the
think,
way you're supposed to do it.
right? I think everybody had good intentions when they came in, man, to want to help. But I
Hmm.
think when you start a business, and I get it, man, nobody goes into business to go out of business, but that's
Right.
what this is supposed to be.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Let's talk about policy and leadership.
Okay.
You brought together police,
Mm.
public works, and human services. These are three groups that don't always even like each other. What's the secret to getting them rowing in the same direction?
Well, let me tell you, I think probably police is the hardest to get on the same page with. And not because that's a bad thing. I think police for so long have been the everything to everybody. I think when you get to this place where you start bringing in other people to go, we want them to do this instead of police. I think sometimes police get on the defensive because you're taking something from them. Like it's like you can't do your job, right? So we're bringing somebody else to do it. And so I think that's a misconception, and I think you got to work with the police to let them know, like, I'm not here to take anything from you. My job is to make it so you can do your job policing. And then the things that aren't really police issues, right? That's what we could take off your plate. So we allow you to go deal with the things that you really need to deal with, that people really need you at. And a lot of that doesn't come from talking. It's really comes from showing. And I had to
Mhm.
do a lot of work to show them
Yeah.
that I can help you, right? I can be that call where you're like, hey, I got this person, and I go over there and now you can go do your own work, do something else, right? And I got this. Or we just arrested this person, I got these belongings. You got a minute to come, yep, I got it. Then they can go book them and get back to work and do their things, and now this person's stuff is safe, right? So just them things for police to understand that, like, this is an addition to you, to the city, to allow you to be a police officer and then allow me to do what I need to do to help the folks that you don't have all the services for, right?
Yeah.
And that you're not going to be transporting, and you're not going to be housing, and you're not going to be doing all these things. And it stops recidivism. So that person that you've been seeing for, over 5 years, and you keep arresting them, and nobody's doing anything. Now it's my turn to come in and say, I got this. Let me see if I can house this person so that so you no longer have to deal with this person anymore. And then they can be on their way. And then we don't see them in Auburn anymore because they're doing well now and they're housed or they're on their medications. But I think, getting departments on the same page, once they understand that homelessness touches every department, right? Public works, people are sleeping they put up tents in the water areas. They're in places that public works needs to get to, or people are complaining about. And so, again, we're someone they can call because there's a lot of fear. There's fear around engaging with people, especially when it's not your job. And there are some people out there who don't want you to bother them. And
Yeah.
so they're scared to go and say, hey, you can't be in this area. And so it allows them to be able to pass it on to someone and say, hey, we got somebody camping over here. Can you guys come over and talk to this person? And then they can do their work and then we do our work. And so I think once you get all the departments to understand that we are the people you call when there's something homelessness going on in your area or in your department, and this person needs some help or you need somebody to come and talk to, that I'm available and I'm there and I work for the city, and you don't have to wait 20 minutes or an hour for me to get there from somewhere else, right? I'm already in the city and I'm coming down to help you, to allow you to keep doing your job.
Wow. That's a really great vantage point. Like, basically, there should be no reason why they don't want your help. I mean, it makes things a lot easier. It's kind of like having some administrative assistance,
Correct,
in their
correct.
role, but it's really more than that. I mean, because they could arrest the person. I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
that's
They could
in
go
the
straight to
law.
trespassing and
Yeah,
arresting, and but
yeah.
again, like you said
What is
before,
that
that
gonna
person will be
do?
right back on the street, right? They're coming right
Exactly.
back.
That's when I think they really probably realize, like, let me just go ahead and call Ken.
Yeah.
Let me just
Yep. Yep.
this is the seventh time I've seen you out here
Exactly.
trespassing.
There you
But
go.
yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering, I'm curious, have you heard about the big beautiful bill, right? That was
I've heard
signed
about it.
into law. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. What are your thoughts? How do you think that fits along with like your message in your book, and what are your thoughts on the big beautiful bill?
I will tell you this, man. I think that bill is going to hurt a lot of people. And I'll tell you why. Is because what happens is we have a lot of seniors that are homeless in Auburn, right? We get
Yeah.
a lot of seniors in our shelter. And what happens is we put a lot of those seniors, because you get seniors coming in who are on the verge of, like, they've just entered into Alzheimer's or dementia, right? And they're not able to take care of themselves, or they have physical disabilities and they're just not able to take care of themselves any longer. And then we put those folks into adult family homes through DSHS. And so when you make it harder for people to fill out that paperwork that needs to be filled out and sent in, or your Medicaid starts disappearing, state funding is not covering some of that, or federal funding, those people aren't able to stay in those homes any longer. And then you get adult family homes that start to shut down or have to put people out. And we're not set up to deal with those levels of health problems. So you're
Level
going
of
to see a lot
care.
of people who are going to be on the street and who aren't going to make it. And then again, like you look at like some agencies, some of the hospitals who rely on Medicaid to provide those medical services. And now Medicaid disappears and people are paying full price, and you're asking them to pay rent, and they got to make a decision on all the medication they got to pay for if they pay their rent. You see what I'm saying? So like
It's a tough
when I look at
decision.
that, and it's already happening, you can see it happening.
Yes.
It just hasn't hit us yet hard, but it's coming, and we're trying to prepare for it. I have some ideas, but I think what I really want people to know is like it's happening. It's not talking about it anymore. It's signed and it's here. And you're gonna see a ripple effect. And there's gonna be a lot of people with disabilities, young and old, autism and everything else, who are unable to meet those requirements of working that many hours, a month or whatever it takes, because they just don't have the ability or capacity, and they'll end up on the street.
Man, that's sad. Really sad.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward, what excites you right now, Kent? Like, what's the partnership or innovation that gives you hope for the future of homelessness?
I was thinking about that question, and that's a hard one, man. I don't see, and that's the sad part, is I don't see any innovation really happening that I can get on board with, that's going to be successful, right? I mean, I know we're talking about doing the mental health hospitals, in different locations, and people are still trying to find out, where those locations are and who's going to be running them. It's exciting to be able to take somebody somewhere, but on the back end, again, if where those people go after that 72 hours, so it's hard, man, because I don't think people are really, we like to do, I think when you look at this, man, we like to throw money at new stuff and not think about all the way to the end of it. It's like I feel like sometimes it's for show. You know what I'm saying? To just be like, yeah, we're gonna do something new. And then you go, but what about this? And they're like, well, we'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, let's just put this right here and then we'll do the back end stuff later, instead of doing it all at once and making sure it works right. And so I don't know if there's anything exciting looking forward with someone doing home. For me, I'm excited that, my goal, man, is to really hopefully, not hopefully, because I got a plan, it's not hope,
Yes.
but I got
Yes.
a plan to reach out to these cities, and hopefully, and reach out to who anybody wants to really do this work and really see results, and understand that, saying no to people is part of being compassionate. It's not, you don't say yes all the time, when you really care about somebody, man. You have boundaries, and I think we've gotten so far away from that, of telling people that, yeah, I love you, I want you to do better, but you can't do this, right? We don't accept that. We want you to be better than that.
Yes, that's so deep. It's so deep and it's true. It's really needed. Sometimes clients get really upset with
Yep.
you when you say
Yep.
no,
Of
and
course.
people then begin, like staff begin to develop this, like, well, let me avoid saying
Yeah.
no
Yep.
so
Yep.
that I don't have to go through that again.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
like,
People don't
no,
like confrontation.
stand your
Exactly.
ground.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can do that compassionately,
Correct.
and you can
Correct.
still hold people accountable, because
Yep.
it is a waste when you're not focusing your program on what your program is designed for or what it can do. And if you're
Correct.
not the right place, you might
Yeah.
need to, in that accountability conversation,
Exactly.
provide them with referrals somewhere else where they
Yeah.
do that.
Right.
If that's
Yeah.
the case, if they just
Yeah.
really, really want that, yeah, there's a few other places
Yeah.
that, may just give you rental assistance without any case
Right.
management. That's
Correct.
your choice. Everybody's in their different stages of change. So,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, yeah. So, if you had a magic wand,
Mm.
what's one thing you would fix in the system, like ASAP, like right now?
I would take all the funding, man. I really would. I would take all the funding, and I think I would do something different with a lot of the funding. I think
Wow.
we just got comfortable with rubber stamping checks and not expecting much. And again, homelessness has become a business. It's a big business, man. It generates a lot of money. and we throw a lot of money at it. But again, there's no accountability with that money. And, you know, and I think those big agencies that give out money to a lot of these other agencies or these cities and states that give out money don't want to say no. I think because if they say no, and I'm gonna get political, man, and this is outside, just
Go
not
ahead.
city of Auburn. This is just me talking.
Come on.
Is you know, and I feel bad for folks who run for offices because what happens is when you want to make a real change and you got to do some things that don't sit right sometimes with people, right? Because it's not about, you know, when I do things, I tell people it's not about the feelings. I take the feelings out of it, man. I got to do what's necessary because this is what's going to get us to where we need to be, right? Because if I'm operating with just feelings, I'm always going to do what feels good, which is not always the right thing. And so I
Exactly.
think when you get into office, because a lot of these agencies rely on this money, if you don't give them the money, they make a lot of noise. And
Yeah.
then next thing you know, you're not going to be back in office again, right?
Right.
So you start doing things to stay in office that you really didn't want to do because you want to stay there, right? And so I think it's become a big business. It's hard to break big business. And when you try to, people make a lot of noise and then they put somebody else in there who will do the things they want them to do. You know, I really don't know how you change it unless someone is just, you know, running on a one term and just going to do the things that need to happen, right?
Yeah.
But if I had a magic wand, I don't know, I would, you know, I would be in control of the funding and there'd probably be a lot of agencies that wouldn't be
They'll be mad at
they'd
you.
be really mad at me.
They'll be
And I
calling. They'll
hey,
be
and I could
calling.
and I accept all of that, man. I tell people all the time, I take all of that. I take every bit of that, all that noise, I
Exactly.
take all of it. Because my goal here, man, it really is 100% is to do what's necessary. And you know, the feelings, man, it's not about the feelings. It's
Yeah.
you know, gotta take the feelings out of it. I got, you know, what's
Yeah.
necessary to help you doesn't always feel good.
That's true. And it's also like when you say like a little delicate, kind of a delicate balance too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I say that sometimes. I think I got that from you. I've been following your career, but I tell that to staff and I say, but you gotta mix it up because
Yeah.
they'll take it one way. They'll say, okay, well, I'm
Mhm.
not having no feelings. No, you gotta
Yeah,
have
yeah,
some.
yeah. Nah,
You
this,
gotta
yeah, yeah.
you gotta have some
Yeah.
feelings. Don't be
I like that you
mean.
said that. I like that you said that because I want to make sure people. I get that too because people are like, man, this dude, and it's not that I don't care. We're talking about too.
Yes.
I care, right?
Right.
But if I'm operating on feelings, then I'll start doing things again. That's where people come. I think you got a lot of community who operate from feelings, right? They see somebody out there. And what's crazy is working, you know, working in the field and being around people. I know all the stories. I know these people out here, man. I be with them. You know what I'm saying? And so
Right.
when they're holding that sign, I've already offered them housing and they turned it down. But then when people come out, all they see is nobody's helping this person, right? And
Right.
then they want to
Right.
give stuff because the feelings get in the way, and but I'm like, your feelings are stopping this person from really getting the help because all you did was just postpone. Because once they get desperate enough, and I don't want people to have to get desperate, but if I'm offering you all the avenues to get out of this situation and you don't want it, at some point, if I'm giving you all the stuff, you're never going to take it.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I didn't come here to watch you die. That I'm not here to watch you die, right? Whatever it takes to save you. And if that means you going to jail so we can have a real conversation, I'm all about that.
Yeah.
But I can't have a conversation if I find you in the bushes dead tomorrow, right? And it's not about just let me give you this Narcan so you can keep using. It's like I need you to be here with me so we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Not I want you to keep using and we'll never have a real conversation because you're dying and coming back and dying and coming back and dying and coming back. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And a lot of times people, when they do finally get to that point, that usually is the breaking point. Like when somebody is there on the other side that has some solution or information, right?
Yeah.
So you're using, we stop you, maybe you go to jail, your case manager's following along, they're there, they're at the, location, they're ready to bind together with the city and all the other resources that are available, coordinated entry to get you
Yeah.
to treatment, long-term treatment. You're on probation. We're working with probation as well. We're
Yeah.
making sure
Yeah.
it's a full
Exactly.
circle around you. The people are like, sometimes people say, if I, had just come out to nothing, I know I would have just went back to my old days.
Exactly.
I would have just
100%.
went back to my old vices and it really does make a difference and people do need to understand that.
Yeah.
All right, Kent. Well, I'm gonna hit you with these quick ones, some quick ones.
All
So
right.
I'm gonna just throw out. these last couple questions, and I want you to give me a short answer or
Okay.
a quick answer. What's the biggest misconception about homelessness you want to kill today?
I would tell you that homelessness, and I know again, I'm gonna say some things that are gonna rub people the wrong way. Homelessness is not always people who are in survival mode and just trying to make it out. Like, we need to stop saying that. There are people out here who some really want to be out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've been out here so long, they just can't see themselves going back in, and they want to be out here because there's a lot of freedom out here. And
Yeah,
yes, it's hard because it gets cold and all the things, but there's going back inside with rules. People don't want the rules. So I think there's this misconception that everybody wants housing. That's not
yeah,
true,
yeah,
right? People
yeah,
turn down housing all the time, and people, when
yeah,
I tell people that, they're baffled by it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What's one metric that proves success and one story that shows it?
Housing people and keeping them housed, right? Because we just don't stop once we house people.
That's
They
right.
can call a year later, and we're trying to make sure they don't come back out to homelessness. I guess just the new one I just got. I'm about to house somebody on Monday. You know, his birthday passed. This dude's been out here overdosed. I don't know how many times, man, and just was tired of doing this and turned 55. And
Wow.
he just got nominated and picked up, and he's excited, man. He wants to be done with this, and you know, and it's great. I'm
That's
glad
great.
we can help him.
That's great. Your message to leaders. I want to hear your message to leaders who say homelessness is too big,
Yeah.
too expensive, too
Yeah.
hard to solve.
Yeah, I would tell those leaders, man, honestly, to go out to the street, man. I think there's not enough people. I'll give a shout out to Mayor Backus in Auburn, really, man. She came out to the field a couple times, and she'd been in them bushes, way back in them bushes. And so
Mhm.
I think for any leader, like, go see what's really going on, not just walk around and talk to a couple people and go have lunch with them. Like, you need to be out there. I'm talking about take a month hiatus, right? And just do the outreach and see
Yeah,
for yourself and go sit in them bushes, man, and talk to them people and see what's really happening. And then you'll be able to hold your human services department accountable, right?
yeah,
Because now you know what's really going on. And now you can say, why are we spending this much money on this department and this department and or not this department, but this agency and this agency. So I think sometimes I used to work at Monroe Prison. I'll just give you an example. I used to work at Monroe Prison as a mental health counselor. And when I hear people talk about cutting positions at the prison, I'm like, that person who's making that decision to cut some officers should come out here and work in prison and see how hard it is and why you need more employees and you're cutting staff because you don't even understand that, you need more people in here because you got so many inmates in here that, like, it's off. And so when people make decisions that affect your work without knowing, I have a hard time with that.
yeah,
That's why I stay in the field,
yeah,
right? I stay in the field, so I'm with my team. So I know
yeah,
what's happening out here. So if they tell me something, we're on the same page. I'm not just doing things to them.
yeah. It's the truth. When you said that story, I thought about I worked in Buckley at Rainier School,
Mm.
and I love to get that overtime. But going doing overtime meant that I had to go to different pats in different areas that weren't my area.
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
was could be rougher. There were people just
yeah,
got out of
yeah,
prison. There was
yeah,
all kinds of stuff going on there, breaking windows and beating
yeah,
people down and sending them
yeah.
to the hospital. And so but I still wanted my overtime. So,
Right.
I was pretty confident about it. I
Yeah,
really felt like, hey, I've been doing this for a while. They're people at the end of the day. And
that's
also,
it.
I'm from the street. So
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
when to back up and get out.
exactly.
But that same mind frame, I got tired of it, honestly.
Yeah,
Not really tired of the work. I love the work, but working in a prison, working in those types of environments, you're watching your back 24, you
yeah,
got to. Like if
yeah,
you just take a break and just okay, I'm gonna just walk through this hallway right here with
yeah, yeah,
inmates and be cool and buddy. But like you said earlier about the compassion and accountability,
yeah.
try that in a prison.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Try not, you need to mix it
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
right? To have
yeah.
respect and not
Correct.
be an asshole because
Exactly.
there's a difference,
Yeah.
You can't just be an asshole
Nah,
around
that's
inmates and think you're gonna be
exactly.
safe.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
we
like
need
that you
to
said
have
that. So I tell people, man, working in prison was probably the best experience to learn how to talk to people because
yeah,
you ain't got no weapons. You just your mouth is your weapon. And so you can't just go in there and talk reckless. And so when I go out to these encampments, I don't talk reckless to people. I
Yeah.
talk to people like they're people, right? Because some of these
Right.
people came out of prison. Some of these people have that prison mentality. And so
Exactly.
you can't just talk crazy to everybody.
Yeah. I would say never underestimate anybody. Never
Exactly.
underestimate anybody. If you learn that, then I think that's like one of the best things you need to know, like when you're dealing with people from touching the homelessness system, I would say, because you could be dealing with somebody who just needs rental assistance. They just came out of prison, 2
Yeah.
years ago. You
Yep.
don't never know who you're talking to, and that's not the
Exactly.
point. But
Yep.
the point
Yeah.
is you should be
Yeah.
aware, right?
Universal precaution, man. That's why I mean that plays a part in everything to me. Not just
Yes.
like, blood pathogens and stuff. I'm like universal precaution. Talk to everybody like that. Them people. I'm not. That's why I go out and I'm like I'm not scared of people. I can't be scared of people and help people. It doesn't work like that. But
Yeah.
I'm respectful all the time, even when I'm asking you to move, right? But there's places where you have to, you got to let people know too. That it's not going to go down like that. But we have to, but we have to have this. We understand each other out here. I have a good relationship with the majority of the people out here. They know who I am. They know what I do, and they know why I do it, and it's not to be an asshole. It's because you deserve more, and I want you to have more, right? But not like this.
Exactly. Ken, I really appreciate you today. You didn't just give us policies, you gave us perspective and stories that hit the heart. Finally, I want y'all to go out and grab Kent's book, Managing Homelessness, and connect with him at eliteoutreachllc.com. And I want you to let this conversation challenge you because homelessness isn't somebody else's problem, it's ours. I'm Giovanni Schachere, and this is The Giovanne Show. Until
Man,
next time,
peace.
stay tuned.
Giovanni Show. The 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 Giovanni Show.